click that record button. So good evening once again. Thanks everybody for joining us. This is our first of hopefully several SEMSO Crew Chief Conference calls for the 2020 season. Hopefully this season is going to go off without a hitch come the fall. There's several things going on in the outside world that could place that in jeopardy, but for the time being, all the conference calls that I've been part of and joining in with the athletic directors, coaches, and administrators up in Lansing, right now, everything's pointing toward a successful start to the 2020 fall season as planned. As we all know, and as things have been happening over the past 5 or 6 weeks, that can change on a day-by-day basis. So what's going to be crucial for the rest of our staff is open communication. That's something that I hope you all have accepted as a norm within our organization, within SEMSO, that communication is a top priority of ours. And once we know from an administration point of view, we try to translate that down to our crew chiefs as quickly as possible so you all can relay it to your respective crews. Quick little updates with what's going on in high school football that I know right now. On Monday, a conference call was held with all of the SEC and KLAA athletic directors and head coaches. A few things that were discussed that we should note. Administratively from the MHSAA, they have opened up and revised the football week and launched what they're calling a 5-quarter rule, which essentially now limits or grants really high school athletes the opportunity to play in 5 football quarters in a given football week. That football week is actually from Tuesday until Monday now. What this allows the teams to potentially do is split up their freshman and JV schedules to maximize participation both in the varsity game and also in the JV or at the JV level. For example, what some teams may think about doing are those low participation or 1 or 2 quarter participant athletes in the varsity game on Friday, the sophomores and juniors playing up, has the opportunity then to finish out those 5 quarters at the JV level on perhaps a Monday contest to get those extra 2 or 3 quarters in. This should boost our numbers or boost participation from the student athlete perspective significantly across all 3 levels. And on top of that, hopefully solve an officiating shortage that we're currently seeing at the junior or sub-varsity level as well. You all saw the email I sent out earlier this week. We presently have over 30 games in the SEC and KLAA alone that are still looking for crews for the 2020 season. This has been the worst that I've seen it in the 5 years as a coordinator. And it seems to be finally catching, or that officiating shortage seems to finally be catching up with us here in the Metro Detroit area with these sub-varsity contests. Our hope is if schools choose to this year and next year split their schedules up and have a single header JV contest that starts at perhaps 5:30 or 6 o'clock on Monday, and then a single header freshman contest that starts at the same time on Thursday, we'll be able to get a lot more participation from officials on those sub-varsity games. Not only that, but it'll also present the opportunity for a lot more snaps for officials with that later start time, since it would no longer conflict with most of our working days. That's the biggest thing out of the MHSAA that we're seeing so far. The coaches have been, coaches' feedback from the SEC and KLAA has been mostly positive. A few things that they have been, or the few things they have talked about that we're going to address today and throughout this off season are things that we've been talking about over the past like 3 or 4 years. Communication remains a top priority. Sideline decorum is something that we want to try to improve upon, and overall professionalism in game management is, again, a point of emphasis that we're going to focus on this upcoming year. Quick introductions of myself and the staff. Most of you know me. A few of you may be able to finally put a name to a face. I'm pleased to say that I am an official just like the rest of you. I started out working in the SEC, working in the KLAA 15 to 20 years ago. I've worked my way up through the Division II level GLIAC up to the Division I Mid-American Conference, where I'm presently a referee. For my full-time job, I'm over at the Chelsea Proving Grounds working for Fiat Chrysler. I get to crash cars for a living, not a bad day job to say the least. If I'm ever overly frustrated after I get a call from the coach, I just get to head down to our crash barrier and see a car get completely destroyed. The rest of our staff, I'll let them introduce themselves individually here in a second, but I'm pleased to say that we as SEMSO have over 550 officials that work both football and basketball within Southeast Michigan. This has been kind of a work in progress between Joe and myself about 3 years ago when we decided to merge our associated groups to combine into one complete coordinated staff in Southeast Michigan to try to send and try to transmit a common message throughout Southeast Michigan. So coaches, fans, student athletes, and officials are receiving the same training, same message, and the same expectations regardless of which game they're working for. We think it's been an extremely positive experience over the past 3 years. The athletic directors and coaches have definitely seen a massive change in both the administrative communication from Joe and myself, as well as your performance on the field. We appreciate that greatly. We appreciate your efforts. We know that it takes a little bit of extra time and effort to do the things that Joe and I have been asking you all to do over the past 3 years. It is not overlooked and greatly appreciated. And I believe it's also appreciated at the state level as well. Our postseason assignments have increased over the past 3 years. Our semifinal and final presence is duly noted with several of our SEMSO members working semifinal and final contests over the past 3 years. So congratulations to those officials. And again, congratulations to you all for your efforts. My partner in crime, the coordinator for the KLAA, the Huron League, Downriver League, and his several other schools in the Metro Detroit area. You all know Joe McCormick. Joe, if you have anything, feel free.
Not a problem. I appreciate everybody being on the call. You know, as JV was telling you, you know, we've been doing this a long time. January 1st, I start my 47th year. So about as long as Mike Kavlich has been on this earth, I can see Mike's picture there. So, but it's been a blast, guys. And you know what? You know why it's fun? Because everybody prepares and everybody works hard. You know what I consider a great week? When nobody calls and says, you wouldn't believe what went on last night in my game. I think that's a great week. And that happens when guys, you know, study the rules and prepare themselves and you know, do what we're asking them to do. So that's all I've got, JV, and I appreciate everybody being here.
Appreciate it, Joe. Again, my partner in crime, and I could not be doing this job, especially in the fall, without him. Brian is our assistant coordinator for the SEC and KLAA, handles much of our administrative duties, and is the huddle master for our organization, dealing with all the game film that comes in and out of our huddle group week in and week out. Mr. Bauer.
Hi, guys. I'm just the guy that you email at the last minute for all those position changes. And whenever you see yourself on a training tape and you're cussing and swearing at someone, that's me.
Thanks, Brian.
Interjection. Can we vote for best beard?
Well, I might throw a poll up at the end of the call for that. So we'll take a look at it, Alex. Good call, though.
Your witness.
Great thing about our organization, and one thing that I'm significantly proud of, is the amount of football experience that you and your crews have on hand between Joe, myself, Brian, your local associations, and many of your crews. Southeast Michigan is a hotbed for exceptional football officiating, and you all are taking significant advantage of that both by being a member of SEMSO and working with your crews and local association trainers week in and week out. The great thing is, between Joe's experience from the Mid-American Conference, my current experience as a member of the MAC, Brian working with the GLIAC, and what we're going to introduce next with our position trainers is you all as SEMSO members are getting access to the same training that the top level officials in the nation are getting. The Big Ten, Mid-American Conference, and Missouri Valley Conference are all part of this consortium that's based out of the Big Ten headquarters in Chicago, Illinois. All of those officials are in the same group and receive the exact same training throughout each and every season. That training that Joe, myself, Brian, Rich, Nolan, and Nick receive is all going to be filtered down to you all, where you're going to be able to get an unabridged access to the same training that the people that you see working on TV on Saturday receive. This exceptional tool is available nowhere else in the state at the level you guys are receiving, and we think that it is going to bring us to the next level of officiating performance, both on and off the field. What we're doing this year is trying to take our training up again to the next level. We're going to be launching something again that's done only in one other place that I'm aware of in the state, and that's Lansing, and mirror their training program, which also mirrors the COC or consortium training that the Big Ten puts on. They have position trainers that almost act as football assistant coaches that are specifically looking at improving the mechanics, fundamentals, and expertise of their specific positions. These position trainers that are listed on our screen are outstanding officials that have worked both high school and are working at the collegiate level. And many of them have a plethora of positional knowledge that they're going to be able to apply and share with you both during the season and as we lead up to the season. Brian Bauer is our referee trainer. Nolan Nowak from Toledo, Ohio, is training our umpires. Nick Brigatti out of Fort Collins, Colorado, with AJ Haddock will be training our line of scrimmage officials. And I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Rich Ames, who recently retired as a field judge in the MAC and is now a scout for the Big Ten Conference onto the staff to lead our deep wing officials. These individuals will be reaching out to you all individually and sharing a training curriculum over the next couple weeks for you all to join in and hopefully learn and pick up on a few things to get those football gears going and ready for our fall season. I'll open it up if anybody wants to say anything. Rich, we'll start with you for a quick intro.
Got to unmute himself.
Yep, there we go.
There he goes.
Really glad to be a part of this organization, have rubbed elbows with a number of the people that are not only on this call, but a part of the organization. The goal here is that we improve high school officiating. And if we can get people to buy into what we have in mind, what they're going to find is by doing a better job on the field, they're going to enjoy the experience even more. So looking forward to putting together some programs and inviting people to sit in on it, and hoping that we can raise the level of our performance at the deep wing position in particular, because those are our newest positions on the field.
Thanks, Rich. Greatly appreciate it. Without further ado then, just to try to keep us on time, we're going to move into the football rules changes for 2020. These have all been reviewed with the head coaches. They've seen the same video that you all are going to be seeing as well. So if you have any questions, again, throw things into the chat window. We'll stop and make sure they get addressed as we plow through. I'm going to quickly join into a Zoom meeting on my iPad. The first rule change that we're talking about, and I'm just reviewing the changes that have been published by NFHS. that was all shared with you, I think, on the last call in the PDF file. The first thing that we're talking about, defining a designated representative for penalty enforcement. We all can be aware, I think 3 or 4, or last year even, the rules essentially called for the team captain to be the representative to choose between the acceptance or declination of a foul. We've from a philosophical standpoint, audio from a sorry about that, guys, technology issues. From a philosophical standpoint, we all understand that we've involved the head coach versus the captains for the past 5 or 6 years from our organizational level. But luckily now we do have rule support that actually supports our standing on taking the captain out of it and going straight to the head coach instead. Rejoin because I joined the audio. Sorry about my technological mishaps here. Start a screen share really quick, get some video going. I'm hoping you all are seeing my iPad screen now. It looks like you all are. So, this first rule change, defining a designated representative for penalty decisions. What this allows us to do is have the head coach define who he wants to choose to make the decisions for fouls before and after the game. The head coaches for all of our conferences have been told by default they are the designated representative until we are told otherwise. So I'm not going to require you all to ask them. It's going to be on the head coach for them to tell us if they determine whether or not they want someone else making the penalty decisions for them. Mechanically, as referees, what we want to do in this situation is simply just look toward the sideline if the decision is not obvious. Clearly, if it's an obvious foul or an obvious decision, we're going to just go ahead and enforce it and not worry about the decision-making process to take place. If the decision is not obvious, like this situation here, our time score and situation below was 3rd and 23. We had a holding foul called by our line of scrimmage official in the flat. There was a gain of roughly 10 yards, which could potentially put this team in field goal range, but it would also be 4th down. So does the coach want 4th down, or does this coach want to back him up even further and make it 3rd and 33? All it takes is that quick little look to the sideline with a preliminary signal, and notice the preliminary signal isn't a formal one to the press box. It's just a quick little prelim signal to the bench to say, hey, we have a holding foul. The coach will make the signal to either back him up, and it's tough to see here, but he is pointing toward the backfield to say, yes, we want to accept it, back them up. The referee gets the information he needs, and we go through and enforce the foul. The decision-making process on questionable penalties could be that simple, as long as the coaches know ahead of time that we're going to be looking to them for fouls that may or may not be obvious. The other thing that can help is when we engage our line of scrimmage or deep wing officials. If we can have those officials interact with the head coach and tell them in what we want to call coach's language what his options could be, we might be able to get a decision from the sideline that much quicker. What do I mean by coach's language? Coaches don't necessarily understand if we say, hey, coach, we have a holding foul. It's going to be 10 yards from the basic spot. We're going to replay the down. They're going to have to do math in their head and kind of figure out what needs to happen. If you do the math for them and simplify it for them and just say, hey, coach, do you want 4th and 12 or do you want 3rd and 33? That makes it easy for them to kind of process in their head, figure out which scenario they want, and come to a decision really quick. So those are the questions we want to be talking to our coaches about and what we want to engage our line of scrimmage and deep wing officials with on that sideline to get those penalty decisions that much quicker and make us that much more efficient throughout the game. Other rules changes really quick that we don't have video for. Halftime intermission. Again, we just have black and white rules, things that we have been doing in the past really for the past 10 or 15 years that I know of. But if a weather delay occurs in the last 3 minutes of the second period, then by mutual agreement of the coaches, we can shorten the halftime to essentially 0 minutes if we want, however long we need at the mutual agreement of both coaches. So we're out for a half hour with 2:59 to go in the second quarter. We sit for a half hour after a lightning strike. We can play those last 2 minutes and 59 seconds and flip the field around and kick right back off to start the third quarter if both coaches agree. 2 changes about the play clock, and these are changes that go to mimic the collegiate book. The first one is a 40-second clarification to eliminate the timing advantage that the defense can potentially get after an injury. We're changing the 40-second play clock policy to reset the clock to a full 40 seconds after any Team B injury. What this essentially does, or why this rule change is taking place, is essentially if the defense is out of timeouts, time is winding down. If the offense runs a running play and the defender is either legitimately injured or feigning an injury at the end of a play, last year we would have set the play clock back to 25 seconds. We would have stopped the clock immediately after the play, and that in turn would give the defense, or save the defense, 15 seconds of game clock. We've eliminated that advantage now by saying if it's a Team B or defensive injury, the clock will always be set to 40 seconds, regardless of what the result of the play was previously. The second thing is another clarification. This is something that we were doing last year anyways because it just made sense, but it's not what the rule was, or is not how the rule was written. But following any down that involves a legal kick, the clock will be set to 25 seconds. This doesn't matter if it's a legal kick that is touched by Team B or Team R and recovered by Team K for another first down. Since we had a legal kick on the play, it will be a 25-second play clock. Any questions about that? I see the chat clear. We can push on. This next action, or this next rule change, and I'm happy that they're doing this because this has been an issue for the past several years, and it involves disconcerting acts. We have an issue at the high school level of disconcerting acts, both by the offense, in my opinion, and by the defense. The problem is, if it's a disconcerting act by the offense, it's just simply a false start foul. And we'll discuss those false start fouls shortly. If it was a disconcerting act by the defense, it ended up in last year's rule book in the NFHS, it would be a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct foul on that particular player. The play I have outlined here, we can look at, again, our time, score, and situation. Late in the game, the team with the ball is down by 7 points, and they're knocking on the door. 4th and goal from the 1. This team in white uses a clap-style cadence that we're starting to see dwindle down into the high school level. The quarterback simply claps his hands, and the center snaps the ball. It's a silent, not necessarily a silent count, but it doesn't involve any type of verbal cues. If an offense uses the clap-style cadence, the defense is prohibited from using any type of words or signals that mimic the offensive signal or interfere with offensive movements or cadence. If the offense claps, that means that the defense cannot clap by rule. Since the offense is clapping, I want us to focus on the middle linebacker here, number 39. We don't think he's doing anything heinous here. He's just trying to get the attention of his cornerback. But unfortunately, when he claps, the center thinks it's his own quarterback. He snaps the ball. You can see the entire right side of the offensive line is a half a step too slow. And the rest is history. Game over. South Dakota State wins because this disconcerting act was not called, and we did not give Missouri State another opportunity at snapping the football. Last year, this would have been an unsportsmanlike conduct foul on number 39. If he already had an unsportsmanlike conduct foul, he would have been ejected from the game. Thankfully, the NFHS recognizes this and is changing this foul to just a 5-yard disconcerting act foul. in an effort to allow us to emphasize these actions by the defense. What I would like us all to do, and what I'd like us to focus on with our crews, is how we might, and discuss on this play that I'll hopefully you all get access for, allow you guys to discuss with your crews on who can potentially pick this up. The default answer is going to always be our umpire. But let me tell you that, especially in this situation, 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, the game is on the line, our umpire is going to be laser focused on movement between our guard, center, and guard. Our line of scrimmage officials are going to be laser focused on action up and down the line of scrimmage. Our referee is going to be laser focused for movement on the backs. Who isn't laser focused quite yet before the snap on this play? Our deep 3. If our deep 3 officials could potentially use their wide field of vision to see this disconcerting act by the defender and blow the whistle for the dead ball foul, we have a better opportunity of getting this play right and correctly penalizing the defense and giving Team A another snap on the ball. I see some chats coming through. What do we have going on here?
Steve, you answered Steve's question almost like you read it, so that was pretty good.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, dead ball foul. Does intent matter? The answer there would be no. When it comes to the clap cadence, or if it's a verbal signal that is mimicking the offensive cadence, it doesn't matter if it's intentional or not. It should be a foul. We're going to talk about intent in this next play, actually. That also involves disconcerting acts. This is this year's Rose Bowl.
Hey, Jeremy, before you leave that previous one,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's say that in the situation that you just showed, that the offense did not react. For instance, it's the linebacker on the other side of the ball that actually claps as opposed to, obviously, the quarterback. So let's say nothing unusual happens. You going to shut that down and foul it, or are you going to make that a warning after the play if it doesn't have an impact?
That's a good question, Rich, and I really don't want to set a precedent on how to handle that in black and white. I'll leave that up to you, your crews. If you, the challenge I'm going to give to all of you is to make sure you know that it happens. Preferably, now that it's just a 5-yard foul, my preference would be that we call it early in the season, take care of it early in the season, so we're not dealing with it in week 9 in the playoffs down the road. With it just being a quick, easy, simple 5-yard foul, it should send a message with minimal penalty to the defense to stop those actions. If, like Rich said, it happens and the offense isn't affected whatsoever, there's no effect or no advantage gained on the play, I would be completely fine if you choose to pass on that foul, let the play go, and either issue a warning to the player or a warning to the head coach to make sure that action stopped. My advice would be 1 warning for the entire team, and if that warning is not adhered by, we start enforcing the 5-yard fouls. I saw another question about the signal to the press box. That signal right now is not known. I can tell you that the collegiate signal is a delay of game foul on the defense. Unfortunately, since the NFHS has not published things yet, I'm not able to answer that question. They're probably going to do something crazy like making it a false start signal that we're going to have to point to the defense and confuse everyone in the stands, because that's unfortunately what the NFHS typically does with these new rules. But we'll all see when the book gets published here in the next couple of weeks what signal they want us making for that particular foul. The next play, again, we're going to discuss a little bit of intent. This is this year's Rose Bowl. We're going to watch the defense. Time scoring situation here doesn't matter. Why Wisconsin tries to do this on a 4th and 13 or 4th and 19, I don't know. It makes no sense at all. But we're going to focus on the movement by the entire defensive line and also by this gunner near the 30-yard line numbers. So a lot of people, and especially coaches, will say that all this is a stint. From a philosophical standpoint, I say BS. A stint is a few players on offense or defense making a motion to adjust their position prior to the start of the play. This is a blatant and intentional act designed to interfere with the offense's cadence or movement. This is a disconcerting act and should be fouled or called as a disconcerting act by the defense, instead of it being a false start on the wide receiver at the bottom of our screen. We'll take one quick look from the end zone. While we're on the topic of disconcerting acts, I was going to talk quickly about disconcerting acts by the offense. I have one play from Huddle that I need to locate. I'm hoping you're all seeing the Huddle screen now. We're going to focus on the offensive side of the ball this time. And we'll see that quick, jerky movement, all by people who are either backs or wide receivers. But from a philosophical standpoint, this motion is quick, jerky, and simulates the start of the play. This action and all action that's like this needs to be called as a false start, the first time, every time. A similar play that I don't have video for is that jerky movement by the offensive line when they go from a three-point stance and snap down, or I'm sorry, they go from a two-point stance and snap down to a three-point stance. If they make that motion, especially knowing our time scoring situation, that those plays typically happen when it's either 3rd and 4 or 4th and 4, when that occurs, that penalty should be called on the offense for a false start for simulating or making motion that simulates the start of the play. You'll all find rules support on that in the NFHS and NCAA book. If the coach tries to give you some crap for that, they have all been shown this play and have been shown the previous 2 plays about disconcerting signals. So they now have received the same message that you all have as well. Any questions about the plays on the offense?
You have a question if that also includes the quarterback, Jeremy?
Yes, the quarterback is included with the restrictions for false starts. And what we want to do with the quarterback essentially is whenever he's making that quick jerky motion on a hard count, if that draws the defense, it should be called for a false start foul against the quarterback. If it does not draw the defense, doesn't necessarily have to be a foul right away. Kind of like what we discussed with the disconcerting acts. If we can use preventative officiating to stop that jerky motion on the hard counts, there's a good potential that we can avoid throwing the flag and managing the game without the penalty. Other questions? Get back to my other video system here.
We have a comment from Gary that it looks like he found in Referee Magazine that the signal for a disconcerting act is 23, which is one hand behind the head, which was formerly used for failure to wear equipment.
Awesome.
Attaboy, Gary.
Well done, Gary.
Of course it is. Of course that's the signal.
Points.
Oh, Lord. I gotta love it.
I did also get a question. I'm sorry. I did also get a question through text, which is what about snapping down on PAT or punt? We do see that in the SEC. I know we see that with Chelsea and some of the other, like Northville, some of those schools. Snapping from a 2-point to a 3-point.
Yeah, if it's a quick snap that draws the defense offside, it's a foul on the offense. We're going to make that clear. If the offense wants to go from a 2-point to a 3-point stance and they want to do it simultaneously, they need to do that in a calm and controlled manner that does not simulate the start of the play. How does it sit, or how do we make the determination on whether or not that movement simulates the start of the play? Well, if it draws anyone offside on the defense, or if it draws an encroachment foul, then it was probably enough to simulate the start of the play because one guy on defense thought that the play was going to start. It is an illegal act that we need to clean up at the high school game. The question from David, what if they do it the whole game? Quick answer there would be, if they're doing it the whole game, they should be masters at it. And hopefully we addressed it week 1 and told them to make sure that it's a calm, cool, and collected motion. The good news is if they are doing it the whole game, chances are through film study and coaching over the past week, the defense has been coached to not react to that motion as well. Clearly, most of the time we're going to be seeing these type of plays, like Brian said, in special teams when it's 3rd and 4 or 4th and 4, when the motion is deliberately designed to create an encroachment foul to gain that automatic first down. When that happens again, make it a false start, penalize the offense, and let's continue the football game the way it should be played without that level of deception. Good discussion.
And I should tell you that that question came from a former coach who hated your answer. So
nice. Second question, is there any consideration for the location of the player who jumps? I would say no for that particular question. The fouling act is actually on the defense, or I'm sorry, it would actually be on the offense there versus on the defense. So we can take away any type of location or who is and who isn't threatened. It's the onus on the offense to not make any movements prior to the actual snap. They have a big enough advantage already by knowing what play is going to be run. We don't want to give them any more advantages by making the defense have to second guess when or when not the ball is going to be snapped, because we're allowing all of these illegal snap simulating movements prior to the ball or prior to the snap actually occurring. Good discussion so far. Thank you guys.
Don't want to make this too complicated. If it's a down lineman, it's pretty easy. You know, if they snap and they react, then you're going to foul the offense. But let's say you got a linebacker that comes from a yard or two behind the line of scrimmage.
Same ordeal. The onus is on the offense.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes it simple.
Yep. The offense is restricted, and this is by rule. The rule is in there. This isn't a rule change. The rule's been in the book. We as officials haven't been enforcing it enough, and the offense is now taking advantage of it. The offense cannot make any movements that simulate the start of a play. And them snapping down or making that quick snappy motion with all of the backs and wide receivers is doing exactly that. They're trying to cheat and take advantage of what they think the motion rule is, but they're instead violating Rule 7, causing that false start foul that we need to start enforcing and start calling. And again, it's just a 5-yard foul. We're not calling unsportsmanlike conduct fouls on anyone. If we enforce this early and we force this often in weeks 1, 2, and 3, it's going to go away by weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7, when the postseason comes around. The last rule change before we get into some philosophies, spiking the ball to conserve time. Now they can do it in the shotgun formation, so we don't have to really worry about that rule change or that exception anymore being hand-to-hand snap. The crucial thing about this rule change and this wording is the quarterback or the person who receives the snap is allowed to intentionally throw the ball to the ground immediately after receiving the snap. What does that mean? If the quarterback muffs the snap in midair and it takes him a second to gain control of the ball, and then once after he fully possesses it, spikes it, that's completely illegal. He does not receive the snap until he has full possession of the football following that bobble or muff. So let's make sure that we don't incorrectly call intentional grounding on teams due to a muffed snap that was then caught and subsequently spiked by the quarterback. Different story if it's a grounded snap that was either muffed and then grounded or fumbled by the quarterback. If the snap goes to the ground and it's then recovered and then they spike the ball, it's a foul for intentional grounding, just like it was in the previous years. Any questions about that rule? A couple last things that I wanted to bring up for everyone while we have everybody on the call. This rule has not changed, but since we're seeing more and more of the RPO or run pass option style offenses, we're going to be seeing this a lot more in our games. And I'm going to publish this video and make sure these plays get published so you can all engage your crews and challenge your crews to figure out how you're going to cover this on a Thursday or Friday night. I can tell you a mechanics change is going to be coming to further involve our line of scrimmage officials with the responsibility of ineligible receivers downfield. On this RPO style play, we're going to focus on the right tackle. And we're going to see he gets some happy feet. By the time the ball's caught, the ball was snapped on the 24. Our right tackle is at the 18-yard line, 6 yards downfield. This looks extremely bad on film and fools our line judge in this case. The challenge I have for all of you is figuring out a good way to both cover this play and correctly rule on this play. What a lot of coaches and a lot of fans and really a lot of officials believe is that the delineation or the point of delineation for when we rule on ineligible receivers downfield is when the ball is caught. By rule, that's incorrect. In NFHS rules, a lineman cannot go beyond the neutral zone expanded, which is 2 yards, before a pass that crosses the neutral zone is quote unquote in flight. At that point, then we take a snapshot the minute the ball leaves the quarterback's arms. Here on this particular play, when we take this snapshot, the tackle is, sorry about that, the tackle's right at the 22-yard line, 2 yards downfield, well within the neutral zone expanded, and well within the legal confines of being downfield on this play. This looks bad, but with this RPO style offense, this is a completely legal play that we should not flag for ineligible receivers downfield. From a philosophical standpoint, I want to try to change our mentality on how we look for linemen downfield. Far too often, what we're doing is we're looking for the ball in the pass. Once the pass occurs, then we start looking for linemen. And if we see some big number or big guy, even with the umpire, we say, oh, shoot, he's way too far downfield. I'm going to throw my flag. Let's reverse that. And really, let's start to adapt a back judge mentality with a delay of game foul. What we train our back judges to do if we have an electronic play clock available, or even if he's looking at his wrist, if the play clock hits 0, the back judge should see 0 on the play clock and then look down for the football. If the football is moving, it's a legal play. If the football is still not moving, we have a foul for delay of game. Let's apply that same philosophy and mentality for officiating ineligible receivers downfield. First thing we should do is look for an ineligible receiver that might be too far downfield. If we see someone that's suspect, then look for the football. If the football's already gone, it's not a foul. If the football's still in the quarterback's hands, we have a potential for a foul, provided we have a pass that crosses the line of scrimmage. Does that all make sense? It's really a reverse or inverse mentality that we've been using to call this foul for the past several years. But it's what's necessary, and it's what we're going to need to change in the future as more and more teams adapt this RPO-style offense, which causes these quick passes to occur with linemen that are flirting very cautiously with that neutral zone expanded. Same style of play here, Maryland Rutgers. Look at the center on this play. Again, goes about 2 yards downfield. He'll actually pause here while he engages in the second level with the linebacker, waits for the ball to get thrown, and once that ball's released, he continues downfield and continues his block. Again, once the ball's caught, that center is roughly 5 yards downfield. It looks bad on film, but when you freeze frame the point where the quarterback's actually throwing the ball. He's only 2 yards downfield, and this play is completely legal. Any questions? All right. Next up, I have Joe McCormick. We're going to talk a little bit about SEMSO expectations, and then we'll close things out with Brian with a few other points of emphasis. So Joe, go ahead, take it away. Thanks for your attention, everybody.
Will do. Everybody hear me all right? I rock through this pretty quickly, but if there's a question, make sure you stop me and I'll try to answer it, or JV can answer it, or Brian can answer it. We'll try to help as much as we can. But first expectation, please sign up and remit your SEMSO fees. Understand that 100% of the money that we get is used to offset mostly arbiter-related and huddle-related expenses. Last year, we paid over $4,000, and it might have even been higher than that. But last time I saw the bill, it was at $4,000. So, if you guys don't pony up the money, then guess where it comes from? It comes out of JV's pocket. And probably a little bit out of mine too, and that's no fun. So please help us with that. I saw a statistic yesterday, or an interesting thing, and some of you guys will understand this. It'll make you laugh, but it's one of the reasons why we like to have these kind of meetings, and it's like we like to have as much participation as we can have. We're all adults here. Understand this: adults learn differently than children do. Okay, so adults, 10% of what adults read, they remember. 20% of what adults hear, they remember. 30% of what adults see, they remember. 50% of what they see and hear, okay? But these are the two important ones. 70% of what adults discuss, they remember. So in your pre-games, guys, it's extremely important that everybody participate because you're learning, right? And then 80% of what they experience, they remember. So for the guys that go to do JV football or do middle school football, and they figure, well, I'm just doing this for the money. Understand this: you're doing it for the experience, and you can look things up and understand things better. So remember those things. What you discuss and what you experience are the two big things that you remember. So during the week, understand there's a few things that, football doesn't just happen on Friday. It doesn't just happen on Saturday. It happens all the time. So in all cases, this is where Brian Bauer's value comes in. He posts videos of virtually every game that's on Huddle. It's out there for you to watch. I watch more video than I've ever watched in my life through Huddle, and I think it's a great thing. But you guys as referees can watch that stuff, and you can learn about your game. You can learn about the opponents of your next game simply by watching Huddle. So preparation is very important. So please watch Huddle. Please prepare yourself. Rule book. Especially for the young guys, learn your position first. Learn your position in and out. Understand what we expect out of you. Help others as you learn and as you grow, but learn your spot first. The referee knows them all, but please understand yours. But that's all stuff in the rule book. Mentor, guys. We're going to have some young guys out here, and especially the newer fellas, and everybody needs a mentor. And I'll bet you if we talk to every single guy on this call, everybody had a mentor someplace. So be a mentor for some of these young guys. You know what? I see Chuck Lindsay on the call. I know Chuck's got as many years out here as I've got, and I know that 47 years is a lot of time for guys like us. We need to recruit. We need to mentor. So these are things that we need, guys. So we really want everybody to buck up and do this for us. Anyway, during the week, the last thing we would hope is that the referee or the crew chief will reach out to the school and confirm things like game time, parking places, dressing, shower, accommodations, post-game plans, all that stuff. Just make sure you do that prior. Don't be the crew that pulls up to the school and says, wow, the back gate's locked. This is the way we always come in. Set that stuff up with the school beforehand. It's a professional approach. Site arrival time. Everybody knows this. Frosh and JV, we'd like you to try as hard as you can to be there 20 minutes prior to kickoff. For varsity, we'd like you there 75 minutes prior to kickoff. And if you can get there earlier, that's even better. Crew chiefs, set the arrival times with the guys. Have a phone number. Arbiter sends you a reminder every single week with an athletic director's phone number. If something happens where you're going to be, you're way late, or something happens where you have to reach out, guess what? You've got his number. It's sent to you in a reminder. Understand that traffic's not a very good excuse. It just isn't. You should know that there's a traffic jam on 94 if you're going to Jackson. You should know all that kind of stuff prior to leaving. Also, do yourself and do me a big favor. Let the athletic director know that you're there. Some crews like to get there. They'll walk the field in their street clothes. They'll do some things prior to getting ready, and then the athletic director will call us and say the crew's not here. And then we get all excited and we call the crew chief, and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm in the parking lot. We've been here. We haven't walked in yet." So let the athletic director know. Next, pregame conferences. This is very, very important. Understand that there are 3 pregame conferences. Okay, the first one is the officials pregame. That's the one that can be held prior to the game on the drive there. But it's a thorough position by position mechanics conversation with the crew. We'd like you to do it all together at the site if you can handle it, but that's the best thing to do. The next one, which is also important, is an administration pregame, okay? That's where you pretty much talk about on-field microphone usage, halftime accommodations, all that kind of stuff prior. You make sure the emergency personnel's there. You make sure you talk to the chain crew. You make sure you talk to the clock operators, both clock operators. You make sure you talk to the ball boys. Don't wait until the first snap and say, oh my, I forgot, we don't have any ball boys. That just isn't going to work. And then the third one is coaches pregame. Do yourself a favor, especially in a 7-man game. Don't bring all 7 guys over and decide to do a conversation with the coaches at that point. Just the referee and umpire come over. If you want to come over and say hello to the coaches as the rest of the crew, feel free to do so later as you're going along. Coaches don't need 7 guys standing there in a big mob coming over to talk to him. It just doesn't work. Don't forget, when you're talking to coaches, you talk about weird plays, captains, game balls. None of this stuff has changed. Rating card, equipment. But keep in mind, too, as you gather information from Huddle on these schools, so some of these questions you may not have to ask, right? Things like right or left-handed quarterback, right or left-footed kicker, all that stuff. So, all comes as part of the preparation. Remember, chance favors a prepared mind, right? So please be prepared. I think it's going to help you. I know it's going to help you. Dress code. Please don't travel in jeans. Please don't travel in jeans, shorts, tank tops. Don't smoke on the field. Be professional at all times. Follow the game dress code that's outlined in the rules book. Pack extra clothes. We actually had a crew last year that they had a long sleeve shirt. I'm sorry, a long sleeve shirt over a short sleeve shirt over a long sleeve shirt. It looked like hell. Don't do that stuff. Pack, be ready, have 2 of everything. But there's nothing in the rule book that says that you've got to be cold, and there's nothing in the rule book that says you got to be wet. So just be prepared. Remember, if the whole crew has to dress the same also. So if one guy's wearing the wide stripes and long sleeves, you all do the same thing. Use MHSAA on-field mechanics. Don't make up mechanics as you go. Don't make up a mechanic signal for, the play that Brian was talking about. Don't make rules up. If you don't know the signal, I imagine you're going to have to send somebody over to the coach and say, Coach, I don't know the signal, but this is what it is. They haven't published it yet. But don't make signals up. Conversation with sidelines. This is where we get ourselves in huge trouble. Be professional always. Respond to questions. Don't yell back. We actually had a game last year where we had a linesman get a coach in a headlock. Don't do that. Don't do that. That was, by the way, that was the last game that guy will ever work with us. Don't let things boil over. If things get that bad, bring the referee over, stop it, get it fixed, move on. But be professional always. Last point, and the JV and Rich were talking about this kind of in a roundabout way, but make it be there. And we're not judged by the quantity of flags that we throw. We're judged by the quality of flags that we throw. Okay, so you don't go in and say, "Man, I've been the umpire. I didn't have a single hold today." Well, you know what? If you don't have a single hold, then you know what? You don't have a single hold. There's no reason that says I got to throw 3 holding flags a game just because. You don't need to do that. So that's kind of where we are. I blew through it really fast. There wasn't a single thing new that you knew except this bit about, discussing and experiencing. So I kind of got us back on schedule.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. And we are getting close to running out of time tonight. I don't want to keep everybody longer than an hour on these calls.
I do have a question for the group that I got texted, Jeremy. It's actually not for the group, but for you and Joe. Is someone requested, and I know it's hard for you guys, but can we please try to get the athletic director phone numbers and the director cell phone numbers? Because they have their office numbers listed, and if something happens, obviously it's impossible to get a hold of them at their office after hours. And Joe, I want to compliment you on the line of the night. We had a guy get somebody in a headlock. Don't do that.
We didn't have video on that, though. I wish we had.
Yeah, please don't do that. I don't need any more of those phone calls after the fact. But yeah, that was not a fun week when I got a phone call from the athletic director saying we had an official put a coach in the headlock. Enough's enough. That's been taken care of, and that's last season, so we can move on. It's coming up to 9 o'clock. One thing that Joe and I want to commit to, and we feel responsible for last year, is that we did not, as coordinators, engage with you all as crew chiefs nearly enough throughout the season. I blame myself for that. Joe takes responsibility as well. And we both feel that this level of interaction is necessary to ensure that the expectations, the philosophies, and the training is getting down to the crew level. I fully believe in the chain and hierarchy of command. I appreciate when you all come to Joe and myself with your crew's issues, rather than having all 550 officials bombard Joe and I with their own issues. Because most of the time, because of this level of communication that we have, you're able to answer your crew's inquiries and questions for them. We're planning on committing to having conference calls or Zoom calls such as this on a monthly basis leading up to the season, and probably every other week during the season, to make sure that you all have an opportunity to give us input, as well as us being able to give you all the feedback and input we're getting from the athletic directors and coaches week in and week out. Again, I think this level of communication and transparency is going to help us improve week after week. And the more communication we have both before and during the season is going to help us better ourselves as a full staff throughout the year. I saw a couple questions coming through the chat, and then I'm going to open it up for everybody. Thanks. AD usually provides cell phone. We will work on those AD cell phone numbers. I've been updating our Arbiter account throughout over the past couple of weeks. Some of the ADs refuse to put their cell phone numbers out there. There's not much that we can do. But at the same time, the onus is then on them. If they don't want to make their cell phone number public, then they're choosing to live with the uncertainty of whether or not you guys are going to be there or not. We need to have the tools to be able to contact them and able to give them the communication that most of them desire. What I can say is that if the AD is willing to put their cell phone number in Arbiter, by all means, you're able to contact them whenever you need. As always, my recommendation, my request is you guys as crew chiefs contact the school. Don't have all of your other individuals contact the school, because it quickly overwhelms that athletic secretary, head coach, or athletic director. Before we end up closing things out, I want to open it up to the gallery for any Q&A. Anything that we've discussed so far? Any other questions you may have about the impending season that I can potentially answer? See a lot of head shaking. Perfect. We'll call it a meeting then. The next meeting we'll shoot for sometime in mid-June. If this time frame works for everyone, of course it does now since we're all sitting in quarantine, but we'll try to do things again sometime during the evening, midweek. We as SEMSO have purchased this business Zoom account, so we're able to hold these type of video style meetings. I think it'll be a lot more value add than conference calls, so we can see some video, interact with each other through a screen share and whatnot. We'll shoot for something around mid-June for our next meeting where we'll cover points of emphasis and make it be their philosophy. Until then, thank you all for your time. Thanks for joining in. Enjoy the rest of your night. Stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you in the fall.